Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game that I'm going to try and approach this from a little bit of a different angle here. I know no show is complete without pessimistic Renny, because I mean, if I'm not here to trample your hopes and dreams and beat down on the things that you truly want and hope for in your life, then what's the point of this whole thing? I mean, why have a podcast if you can't do that? So I'm going to try and get all the negative things I can out to start off this podcast to get going. So already here we go. I mean, if you've got some time, grab a sandwich, get a drink, do all these kind of things. So let's just get right into it and say, I don't know that was the most urgent of Dallas Stars teams that the Winnipeg Jets could have played. I don't know if that Dallas Stars team played like they had much, if anything, to play for. Now, one win with 4 games left gives them the not just the the division for sure, but probably the conference. They probably already have both already. But I don't necessarily think that was the best version of the Dallas Stars. And that is where pessimistic or negative Renny or whatever you want to call them, that's where it ends. That's all that you could possibly say about this game that was in any way not the Winnipeg Jets being a giant snowball getting bigger and bigger and bigger, rolling at breakneck speed down a mountain. If the Dallas Stars decided to show up in a manner where they were really, really going as hard as they possibly could to try and claim that division on this night, I don't know that the Winnipeg Jets wouldn't have broken them with that game, because Rick Bowness wanted the Winnipeg Jets to get back to the team that they were. That's been the goal around these last 10 games here, trying to get the Winnipeg Jets back to that team that they were. They always talk about that 32, 33 game stretch where they were just absolute monsters defensively. Well, they got back there tonight. Okay. And so if you talk about the wins that were piling up here, and of course they do it after a game in which they somehow pull off a victory after getting their head completely kicked in and looking like they decided to not show up in the last two periods. Of course, the Winnipeg Jets show up with their best effort since the game that they beat the Boston Bruins before Christmas. That was the last time we saw the Winnipeg Jets play to this high of a capacity. And of course they do it, because that's these Winnipeg Jets. Obviously capable, so often maddeningly not showing those capabilities and then popping up and being able to do this on a night like tonight. But this was the Rick Bowness blueprint executed to full effect. The best game we've seen from the Winnipeg Jets since that Bruins game before Christmas time. And what are the signs that we can see that this was the Rick Bowness blueprint? Well, take your pick, right? What does the bonus blueprint look like? Well, it looks like all 4 lines playing exactly the same each other. Is that what we saw tonight? Of course it was. I dare anyone to tell me that is not exactly what we saw. It was hard to tell which lines were out there most often. What else does it look like? Well, remember when I used to talk about the Winnipeg Jets and how Connor Hellebuyck had faced, further shots out than all but 9 goalies who had suited up for a game in the NHL this year. I think he was the 84th ranked goalie as far as shots from further and further out. That's what we saw on this night tonight. We'll get into Laurent Brossoit because he deserves a lot of credit, but I've said it in the past on this podcast. There's times that Connor Hellebuyck, hey, he had a shutout this season, Connor Hellebuyck, and I don't believe got a star in the game. We were joking about it afterwards. But I was also the one to say earlier on, there should be nights where a goalie gets the shutout and isn't the first star, because there's more important things that happen in the game, and it was more of a team shutout. Well, I've said it about Connor Hellebuyck in the past. This was a team shutout for Laurent Brossoit. The one time where things kind of went wrong for him and he got a little bit leaky, it's the Jets defenseman that notices before the Dallas Stars player and pops it and gets it out of there. This is the Winnipeg Jets forcing forcing shots from the outside for the most part, not letting the Dallas Stars anywhere near the net. A huge sign for the playoffs, if you ask me, because as I've said, go back to the Montreal Canadiens when they knocked off the Jets, go back to the St. Louis Blues, go back to the 2 Tampa Bay teams, go back to Vegas last year. These teams succeed in the playoffs because they simply don't let traffic to the front of the net. And that's what you saw from the Winnipeg Jets here tonight. Another thing about the Winnipeg Jets, their depth coming into play, the way they score, shots from the point, chaos in front of the net, shots tipped in. And my favorite of all is grinding other teams down so much and making it so that games are so low scoring and there's a feeling there's not going to be anything in there, that anyone can play the hero for the Winnipeg Jets. Because when the Jets play like that, all it takes is one goal and you are playing a massive, huge outcome in the game. This isn't winning 7-5 and you had the second one or whatever. This is, if you're David Gustafson who pops into the lineup and you score, well, that's the goal that made it seem near insurmountable to a Stars team that didn't get a sniff of anything on this night. And then beyond that, you're talking about, we're back to the idea of such focused roles and everyone on the ice knowing exactly what they're doing, to the degree that it doesn't matter if you bring in David Gustafson. It doesn't matter if you bring in Rasmus Kupari. It doesn't matter, just like it went back to bringing in Axel Jonsson-Fjällby. How often, back when the Jets were in that stage of hockey that they've been trying to get back to, how often did a player come up who was a press box player who walked in and played a role in the outcome of the game? That's what we saw here tonight with David Gustafson, who came in, and we're going to have a conversation about the third line, because I had a whole bunch of people asking me over and over again about putting Tyler Toffoli on this line. And I had, responded numerous times about how that fundamentally changes what that line is. David Gustafson kind of backs up everything that I've been saying, because he goes and gets that line back to what that line first and foremost is supposed to be. And it's not a scoring line. Even though he scores here tonight, he allows that third line to achieve exactly what Rick Bowness wants from that line. So I don't know how many is that, 6, 7, 8 that I listed off. This was the Rick Bowness blueprint through and through. Pat Rathwell said it earlier on. Mid-December Jets showed up tonight. Listen, your guess is as good as mine how they went from that. This to me is the conundrum with the Winnipeg Jets. Having covered them, I'm sure it's a conundrum for you as a fan, having watched them. But since 2018, this has been a team that every single year at certain points of that year has made you think they are capable of doing great and special things. And then there's moments where they just don't even look like the same team. I don't know if you can find a greater contrast than the second and third periods of that last game against the Nashville Predators, and this fully complete 60-minute effort by the Winnipeg Jets here tonight. It is such a contrast. But one thing we know about this team is they are able, and have done it from time and time again, to go from the highest of the highs to the lowest of the lows, and sometimes back to the highest of the highs. And what it does, it makes for appointment viewing, because you never really know which version of the Jets is going to show up. Are they going to take this now and lock it down and take it through the playoffs? Maybe. They look like they're capable of doing it. Or are they going to turn around the very next game, in a game that matters, and absolutely forget to show up in that game? Maybe they'll do that, because they've shown that they've done that in the past. This is appointment viewing for the Winnipeg Jets, because from shift to shift, game to game, period to period, life is like a box of chocolates, which is a lot like the Winnipeg Jets. You never know what you're going to get. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business to get his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, everybody. Kenny, I really implore you to start a podcast on your own. We can still do Kenny and Renny, but I need you to go start one on your own because Tishu's incessant belly aching all the time about just wanting to listen to you. I really need this guy to have a place, a safe space that he can go where he can just focus in on that kind of stuff and enjoy the kind of outfit you're wearing tonight. A Vittorio Rossi, no doubt. Got a quick story before we move on.
Hey,
Went to
like
go
this
see
tie? This
Frankie.
tie should look familiar, buddy.
Well, hey, I Frankie gave it to me. I gave it to you. This is how these things work. Went to go see Frankie and the boys today to get the playoff suit suited up. I think I told it on the podcast. I needed to lose some weight to get into the suits. I told Frankie, do not adjust them. I will get into those. And 10 days later, I walked in and I pulled it off. I lost the weight necessary. Frankie, do you think he believed in me? Not one bit at all. Frankie was like, to be honest with you, I didn't think you were going to pull it off, but I'm Frankie. And if you didn't, we can roll with the punches. We can make it work, right? So regardless, I've got one more suit to go pick up. And I told Frankie, listen, I'm going to make you guys take that suit in because I'm going to keep losing to the point that they got to take that bad boy in. He didn't believe that either, Kenny. But what I do believe is it doesn't matter what I throw at Frankie and the boys. They will take care of you and make you look 1,000%. Whether you blow up like I did, whether you trim down like I'm trying to, one way or another, they'll make you look like $1 million. So you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi, walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, you look good. And I didn't think that I could feel better than I did after I proved Frankie wrong today. But I don't know that anyone feels better than the Winnipeg Jets do right now about themselves after that performance.
Yeah, it's we should be playing Guess Who's Back. But again, are they back for real? Now we'll see on Saturday. So, yeah, I mean, total template game. I mean, this was what Rick Bowness has been asking for. Again, I'm not here to say that this is the way it's going to be for the last last 3 games here, but this is what I was talking about. Like, we're going to find out about the Jets. It's still in them. We've only seen it one time, but this is why I wasn't in a state of alarm and panic like some folks were when we had our classic rant when I was at the Arizona Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport on that Saturday afternoon. This is what the Jets can look like, and not Sean. They didn't look like it against the Anaheim Ducks or the San Jose Sharks or the Chicago Blackhawks. This is the hottest team in the National Hockey League. They recently had an 8-game winning streak. They've won 10 of 11. They had won 15 out of 18. So this was no pretender showing for the Winnipeg Jets. You touched on their lines and what they did, and again, all 4 lines had an impact on this game, no matter what. Right? I mean, that was impressive. So I get it, and there's lots of things that I want to get into, and this is not an area for gloating, but my timeline was filled with hilarious takes this morning. Sean, Jets are going to lose 10-0. Coach doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, come on now. Like, the Jets are up to 104 points this year. They have not done it by accident. So again, they're going to have to do it again against the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday. That's the next step for them to see if they can do it. But I am going to say that this was the best game. I agree with you completely. And I actually think it might be their best game of the entire season, though I do think that the most dominant they were was against the Boston Bruins. Mm-hmm. But that was we both agreed at the time that the Bruins were not at their best in that game, and the Stars weren't today either. But the Jets had a lot to do with it on both occasions, and it was an impressive performance. And again, I want to start with Nikolai Ehlers. Nikolai Ehlers, this is what Nikolai Ehlers does. I said it on the pregame show with Kelly. Nikolai Ehlers, would he have been pissed off about playing 9:37 and being stapled to the bench for the majority of the third period on Tuesday night in Nashville? Yeah, he would have. But guess what? You know what he didn't do? He didn't sit around and sulk about not being on the top line or being on the ice for fewer than 10 minutes. He got ready for the most important game of the year, and he was one of the best players on the ice. That's what Nikolai Ehlers does. And, for all the folks that say the Jets are just catering to Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, how about the possibility that they might be catering to Nikolai Ehlers in this case and putting him with two guys he actually quite enjoys playing with? And that's not a knock against Scheifele and Connor, but Ehlers actually quite enjoys playing with Sean Monahan, as I've been saying for weeks now. And it's something that he just told me after the game this evening. So anyways, I don't want to get into that too much, but it's a start for both of those lines. Was it perfect? No. Was it perfect for the Jets top line? No, but it was pretty good. And yeah, I get it. They didn't generate as much offense in the first two periods. And some folks were taking victory laps about that. But what about the whole premise that the Jets top line has to get more than they give up? Right? What did they do today? They got an empty netter and gave up absolutely nothing. So how come it's only a win when Ehlers is on that line for those folks? I think.
Well, you kind of sound like you're going in the opposite direction of what you think those people are saying.
Sorry?
It's an empty net goal. Like
I don't care about the goal, but even with Sean, no, without the goal,
getting
Sean,
more than they gave
without
up,
the
right?
goal is they're even. All I heard about that breaking even is good enough. So they broke even today.
Right.
Is that
yes?
Right?
I'm not going to argue that.
Well,
yeah.
And did they get pinned in their end for minutes at a time? No, they didn't. They had a couple shifts in their end, but it's not like the shots or chances were, 18-1. I mean, come on. Anyways, they're going to have to do it for a long time, but this is very simple for me, Sean. If Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor can't show Rick Bowness that they deserve to play together against the Dallas Stars and against the Colorado Avalanche and against the Vancouver Canucks, then they're not going to play together for the majority of the playoffs. So today they took a first step in that direction. Anyways, and I loved what I saw for the Monahan line. Toffoli, 100% back? No. But I liked his game at times, and I liked Ehlers' game a lot. And that, again, is my whole point. Ehlers plays well with Monahan.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. Here's what I think happened. I'm not arguing with you. It just sounded like you talked about.
Oh, no, I don't care about victory that.
Laps.
It's just like,
it sounded
it's
like
just
you were
like
taking
overtime.
Victory laps
no,
over.
Sean, it's like the overtime goal. It doesn't matter, but it still counts. But my point was, all we heard about is the Jets' top line needs to break even. So even without the empty net goal, they broke even.
No,
even though I don't agree.
I know, but I don't. This is a night where the Winnipeg Jets win a game where they change things up, and listen, you can't argue with the blueprint, right? But we also know that line put back together, this is a complete and total team win, right?
Exactly.
But it's also the first line playing the way that you want them to play. Now, they didn't generate like crazy. This is an example of them going crazy. I think people took issue with when those lines flipped away. You seem to get on that Ehlers line right away. That's where I think you and a segment of the chat room or a segment of the people who are talking about this are in a different spot. And so by that same token, it almost seems now like you're going in the other direction with this line, where there's not it's not like they won that game for them.
I didn't say that at all.
Yeah. No, I know that you didn't
line
say
was
that.
Great, and the four lines as a whole.
It just seemed like you went at the Ehlers line really quick and heavy, and now you're kind of going in the other direction. And I don't know that there's.
I love the way the Ehlers line played. That's why I started with them.
No, I was talking about when Ehlers got put on that top line a few games ago. Anyways, we're not going to go in that direction. You made your point. I think people have made their point. We know where that stands. I want to get into Brossoit right off the top. But first, I want you to give a shout out to Sweet Lou before we go down that road.
Sure. For folks who have realty needs, they'd like to have them net, whether you're buying, selling, looking for what that house on the corner might be selling for, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
All right, let's get into Brossoit. I'm going to tell you what I saw. The one thing that I'll take away from the way that the Jets played tonight, I think some people were referring to him as being big and boring. I actually didn't think he was overly boring. I thought he was quite aggressive on this night. But the way that the Winnipeg Jets were defending and the way that they were forcing shots from the outside, it allows that. And it allows that because just the way that the Jets were not allowing the Stars to get to the front of the net, or at the times when they were there, they were beating them to the pucks at the side of the net. What that allows for a goaltender to do is focus on making the first save and not having to worry about making that second save, not worried about a backdoor tap in, not worried about, dropping the puck right there and someone being there, Johnny on the spot to put it in, because you're essentially playing goaltending. Someone made a comment about us needing a Wallace and Wallace fence between the two of us. You're basically playing goaltender with a fence in between you and the opposition. You don't need to worry about them getting at you, so you can focus on whatever is being fired, lobbed over that fence, thrown through that fence, shot through that fence. Laurent Brossoit was really, really able to just make sure that he was making that first save time and again on this night. It leads to him having his third shutout of the season. He's tied for 9th in the NHL for most shutouts on this season. A backup goaltender who is not playing all that many games, already in that position. Someone, I had retweeted it earlier on. Let's see if I can find it quickly. But the thing about Brossoit, 32 goals against in his last 18 starts. He's allowing less than, less than, 2 goals per start. I'll go back and say it. This is what there's no difference between having Laurent Brossoit in net and Connor Hellebuyck in net. I will say this. I don't know if Laurent Brossoit would have got the results that Connor Hellebuyck got in the last game where the Jets decided to go defense optional in the second and third period, although he's given us no sign to believe that he couldn't have done that. But when the Winnipeg Jets play like this, it is almost inconsequential who plays in net when they play like that. But that said, I'm making sure that I give Laurent Brossoit his flowers, a couple stats to kind of just show how well he's playing. What do you see from him tonight, Ken?
Oh, just absolutely fantastic. Laurent Brossoit has given up. Yeah, he's just been absolutely fantastic for the Jets. It's impressive. I actually thought he was quite good. I thought this was one of the days where I thought he maybe had some tougher saves that maybe he made look routine, sort of Hellebuyck-esque. But I also do think I'm with you. I thought he was very aggressive and very dialed in early on. There were not, it wasn't a shooting gallery, and it wasn't a flurry of action. But I mean, I thought he looked incredibly confident and calm in the crease, which is very normal for Laurent Brossoit. I thought it just was another classic example of, one of the biggest storylines in the NHL is goaltending this year, Sean. Who didn't have it? And there's tons of teams who went into the year with great expectations that had no goaltending and are not good enough goaltending. Some people didn't want to pay the price for Hellebuyck, and that's fine. But, I mean, when we talk about receipts, there's going to be a lot of GMs sort of, when the GMs go into their scouting meetings this year, Sean, there's going to be a lot of people asking why they weren't banging on the table for Laurent Brossoit last summer, when they're going to be banging on the table for him this summer. And that's a big whiff for a lot of teams. And I understand there were some injury concerns, but Laurent Brossoit has put those to bed. And, quite frankly, he's ready for more, and he's going to get more no matter where that is. And I know some Jets fans don't like us constantly saying, why are you saying he should leave the Jets? I mean, it's simple. Laurent Brossoit needs to play more than 21 games in the year, and he's not getting more than that here. So
and he
this
wants
isn't
to
a discussion.
He said it at the beginning of the year. He hoisted the cup. He wants to be the guy in the net when the final buzzer goes before hoisting the cup. He's made that abundantly clear. I will say this, Ken. I think he was taking a deal that made sense with the expectation that the Jets were going to move on from Connor Hellebuyck, and that he was going to, I think it takes a special kind of situation for him. Like maybe a team like the LA Kings replacing Talbot and going with a guy like Laurent Brossoit, right? A team that is good defensively, but needs to make a bet on a guy who can do better than what they already have, but isn't completely and fully all in relying on that. I feel like what we've seen the New Jersey Devils exposed as this year, they would rely a little too heavily on him. And if it's the fact of the matter is, as good as Laurent Brossoit has been, because we've never seen him start at a full year as a goaltender, he's a gamble. And that's just the
Sure.
fact of the matter. And he would tell you the same thing. Anyone would tell you the same thing. You never know how a goalie is going to react to a complete full season, never mind a first season, a second season, a third season. Connor Hellebuyck's first season, he was supplanted by Steve Mason the next year before winning the job back and going on to become Connor Hellebuyck. But in this case, I think you need a team that's more like less reliant on needing that. And then maybe you go and make that play and it ends up being a super play. I think that's what the Jets were trying to do. Just I don't know that there was a full expectation that Connor Hellebuyck was going to be coming back, and as such, you find Laurent Brossoit in a situation that maybe I'm sure he loves where he is right now, but we all know he wanted to be a starter, and that's not going to happen with Connor Hellebuyck there.
Yeah, and I agree. It was a gamble, but was it a bigger gamble than some of the gambles those guys took with either internal candidates or other guys that they went to? I don't know. That's my only point there. And again, this is not just 2020 vision here. Like Brossoit had a nice sample, like 20 game sample from the stretch run last year in the playoffs until he got hurt. So again, the Jets were the beneficiaries, and they're thrilled that they got Laurent Brossoit back for one bonus season. There's a reason why he was the Winnipeg chapter of the PHWA's candidate for the Masterton Trophy for perseverance and sportsmanship and dedication to the game. And we've seen those examples. And Sean, we know this. If you're a guy who thinks he deserves more, sometimes those guys can check out. Laurent Brossoit has done the complete opposite. All he's done is be ready for whenever his games have come. He's barely played, down the stretch here, and that makes it even more impressive. That's just his, second start in the last 10 games, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 games. So, excellent job by Brossoit. Solid today. And again, the team defense was impressive in front of him. There's no doubt about that. And you're right. He caught a couple of breaks. 2 of the breaks, Dylan Sandberg finds the puck first. Vladdy Nemestikov gets it out of trouble. And then at the other end, it was classic goalie, Sean, and delivered with a smirk. I asked him about that shot by Thomas Harley that was tipped by Jamie Benn that clanged off the post behind him. Well, what did he say? That's all I gave him, and then smiled. So classic goalie move. And, hey, sometimes you have to be lucky, and sometimes, you get those kind of bounces. And I was impressed by the way that he played. And, quite frankly, Sean, based on how the games are staggered, there's a chance that might have been his last start of the year. Yeah. Right? I mean, the 3 games left, there's a 2-day break before the game on Tuesday. Now, again, if the Jets clinch second place, if they beat, I believe the scenario is if the Jets win on Saturday against Colorado and then win on Tuesday against the Kraken, then that Thursday game won't be for second place. And then, obviously you can consider going with Brossoit. But again, if the playoffs are starting so soon, Hellebuyck is a rhythm guy. He might want all 3 of them. And again, I think that you can easily give Brossoit one more game. I'm just here to lay it out that there's a possibility that was Laurent Brossoit's last start as a Winnipeg Jet. And if that's the case, what a send-off he just gave to his teammates.
No doubt.
And to all the other GMs that are watching and wondering if they might want him in the offseason. I think this is a nice transition for you there.
Great point, Ken. Hey, one of the things I always try to do here is make sure that in our takes, both Ken's and mine, when we give our takes and you disagree with them, even if you do so rather aggressively, we try to make sure that we give you a voice in here. Baby Yoda here says, Renny sucks, don't like his take. Listen, we do this and we try and give everyone a voice. Try and use your big boy words here, Baby Yoda. If you can express yourself like an adult, we stick around. But as soon as you start attacking people, you're gone. Okay. So I'm not doing anything about it. Maybe it'll take one warning for you to figure this out and conduct yourself like you have a little bit of maturity. Otherwise, keep going down that road and you can pound sand. That's the way it's going to go here. I want to get to the Gus bus, but first I want to do the pristine wake-up call and just say, I think that the Winnipeg Jets fans as a whole have been given the pristine wake-up call. I feel a vibrancy. I feel like a belief from Jets fans that I don't think I've felt. And it's funny, you get this one game like this, and yeah, okay, they're on a 5-game win streak, so it's going to sound ridiculous. But I do think that this game has given people that flash. And that Boston game, I always go back to it because that was the one that I really felt like the rest of the league, a lot of the media around the league turned and looked and said, this Jets team could win the cup. This was another game like that. And I think it's woken up the Winnipeg Jets fan base to the possibility that that something big could happen. I think something big can happen if the Jets can continue to play like that. So that to me is the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, which means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. You can also give Pristine Roofing a call at 204-237-7663. Don't forget their Pay It Forward program, where they are giving out a free roof for someone in need. So if there's someone in your life who fits that bill, who may not be able to afford it but needs it, you know what to do. Get a hold of Pristine Roofing, and they may just take a look at you for that. Hey, Baby Yoda, see you later. It's good taking. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. Act like a big boy, buddy. Gus Bus, let's get to that. What'd you see?
I saw what we've been seeing for a lot of the year. This was probably David's best game, though, and he was put in an elevated role and took absolute full advantage. And again, this is, Sean, when I was still working at Sportsnet, one of the first pieces I wrote in training camp was about David Gustafson and maybe the potential for him to be on a line, on the checking line with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton and moving to the wing. I understand completely that his offense hasn't, picked up as much as some people would have liked, including David Gustafson. And I know there was a stretch where he was spinning his tires a little bit, and then when he played well, he got hurt. He got hurt again. But this is an example of a guy staying ready. It would have been easy, again, for David Gustafson to think, oh, man, I'm not getting another chance this year. But if he would have done that, then he would have come in and played poorly, and then he wouldn't have gotten another chance. Instead, now he's given the coaching staff food for thought and opened up a realm of possibilities, whether it's, it's unlikely to be on that line as soon as Nino Niederreiter comes back, which could be as early as Saturday, for those of you who missed the morning skate and the update from Rick Bowness. But he definitely showed he could play on the fourth line if necessary, and if there was an opportunity on the third, he could do that too. I loved his defensive responsibility and reliability today. I liked the way that he skated. I liked the way that he got in on the forecheck. I liked in the second period when he looked like he might be passing and he took a sneaky shot where it looked like Odger might have been cheating off his post a little bit. I like the energy that he played with, and I believe he was one of the two guys to get one of the jackets today, and that one on his 24th birthday. I just thought it was an excellent game for him. Adam Lowry had a couple great quotes about the impact that David's been able to have. This is a guy who's always made people around him better, but he hasn't popped offensively. And Sean, the irony in the entire equation is, on a night where Rick Bowness put him in the lineup for defensive purposes, guess what? David Gustafson snaps a 30-game drought. And, again, it's a lucky goal. But guess what? Like you said in the opening, you know why that's a repeatable goal, even though it's a lucky bounce that it goes off the stick of Mason Marchment and the skate of David Gustafson? He got to a place the Jets had been so few times, Sean, in the first three meetings. We talked about it constantly after each of those games. Where was David Gustafson? Right around the blue paint, which is what the Stars did an incredible job of preventing the Jets to get there in the first three meetings of the season. It's not that they were poor at it today, but they were a lot better at getting there than they had in the three previous meetings. And Gustafson was one of the guys who got there. I love the way that he played. People know that I've been the conductor of the Gus Bus for a long, long time. This is a guy who works incredibly hard. He's a very humble individual. There's been some frustration, but there was a point last year, Sean, where David stopped worrying about his lot in life and started just trying to do what he could to stay in the lineup. And it didn't allow him to stay in the lineup last year, and it hasn't allowed him to stay in the lineup this year as a regular, but it's shown his value to a level that he hadn't previously shown it at. And that's a good sign for him, no matter what happens down the stretch and into the playoffs, as few or as many games as he gets in. David Gustafson is showing Rick Bowness and the coaching staff that he deserves to be an NHL regular. And whether, it's more likely that will be next season, but he's also shown that he's going to be an option for them to consider in the playoffs as well, just because of the smarts and the way that he plays.
Well, the thing that's important about it is what you just touched on, the idea that we know that if the Jets need someone to step in, that David Gustafson can step in and play that way. Him getting the goal, to your point, entirely important because he got to that place that was so hard to get to against the Dallas Stars. Good. Hey, this is one of those things where if and this is a lot of what that system is predicated on, the bonus blueprint is just doing the right thing over and over and over and over and over again. And the bounces will go your way because when you're doing the right thing and you're in the right spot, hey, there was a couple of redirections earlier in the game that didn't get into the back of the net, that were close, but didn't quite go. And then they did. And when they do go, it's because you've had 7, 8, 9 bounces that didn't go your way. And then the 10th one goes your way. So while you're tempted to say, well, it was a lucky redirection, it's a lucky redirection after a whole bunch of other times that redirection didn't get lucky. But what it is chaos. And he goes out there and he helps to create chaos in that situation. And that's what you needed from him in that. And so I'm going to get to this. I wanted to get to this quick explainer because I don't know about you, Ken. I think you get a lot of the same questions I do, but so many people after Toffoli got moved down and people were ready to say, Perfetti doesn't come out of the lineup. You can't take him out. Now you needed to find a place for Toffoli to go. And you are moving Toffoli to the third line to break up the third line so that you can, you're breaking up the constant on the Jets so that there's a place for Perfetti to go. It wasn't even about that for me. As bad an idea as I think that is, I know a lot of people thought you put Toffoli there, and what you do is you increase the possibility of them to score because Toffoli's more of a scorer than any of the guys they have on that line. But the point of that third line isn't to score. It's to erase. It's to disrupt. It's to get down the ice. It's to trap the other team. It's to churn them on the boards. It's to change momentum in the game. And the reason that line does it so well is because Appleton's the first point of contact. We talked about this before. Lowry goes in, follows it up. They create their opportunities, getting it to the front of the net where usually Nino Niederreiter is the guy there. But Nino Niederreiter also knows how to grind the boards. David Gustafson went in and did a very decent facsimile of what Nino Niederreiter does well. He was hard to play against. He was hard on the puck. He was disruptive. He was doing all those things. And so I think this game is a perfect example of why Toffoli doesn't work on that line for what you're trying to get them to do. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of how that line works and the way they work. And it's not David Gustafson scoring. It's the first goal scored by Nick Ehlers, right? Yeah. And everyone's saying, well, what are we talking about? What does that have to do with the third line? Well, go 2 shifts before the Ehlers goal. And it's the shift where that puck squeaks through Brossoit. It is Logan Stankoven's line is on the ice. They almost score there. They keep the puck. They keep pressing. They get another shot towards the net. They almost tap it in on the side of the net. The Winnipeg Jets are completely and utterly on their heels after a fourth line shift. And then they switch and the third line goes out. Go back and watch this game if you've got it on record. And then the third line takes the puck, stops all that momentum, heads it into the opposition end, and grinds them. And they don't get anywhere close to scoring. And this is my point. It's not about them scoring. It's about them A, killing that momentum, and then B, taking it down the ice and churning and grinding in a way there where at one point, if you're defending them, you have to have a guy on Adam Lowry and you're fighting him and you're throwing all the effort that you have in just to stop him. And then he gets it to Mason Appleton, and then that guy's got to do that. And then you get it to David Gustafson or Nino Niederreiter, and then that guy's got to defend that way. And then what happens is the Stars are tired, so they get the puck and they're on their way skating it out. And because they're tired, they try a pass that's cross ice and it's not crisp. It's not on the stick. A, because the Jets are challenging it, but B, because they're tired from trying to handle those guys going crazy, and it goes down as an icing. Okay. So
Right.
now they've killed the momentum. They've entirely tired out that line, and they go, and that now those guys are stuck on the ice. They lose the draw, comes to the front of the net, and who beats his man to the net because his man's dead tired? Nikolai Ehlers does. That is the strength of the third line, because quite often, not only are they doing it, but they're often doing it against the best line of the opposition. So not only are they erasing the other team's best line, but they are setting the table for everyone else on the Jets to succeed. That's an Ehlers goal. That's a second line goal. We'll talk about it as a second line goal, but that goal does not happen if not for the third line. And if the third line doesn't stall the momentum, maybe the snowball keeps going downhill for the Dallas Stars and they score at that point, and now it's a 1-0 game. So David Gustafson continues in the mold of what Nino Niederreiter does, which is why that line works and exactly what you want from that line. I know at the beginning of the year when they were scoring, it was sexy and everyone loved that. When they stopped scoring, people started saying the third line stopped working. The third line, at the root of what it is supposed to do, never stopped working. The goals didn't come as easily, and we shouldn't have expected Mason Appleton to continue on that pace, or Adam Lowry, maybe Nino Niederreiter. But Gus Bus shows that if you go in and play a facsimile of the game that Niederreiter plays, that line is still everything it's supposed to be. I think they were the most important line for the Winnipeg Jets on this night.
Yeah, and 3 shots on net and 4 hits. So again, is he as physical a player as Nino Niederreiter? Absolutely not. But David did a nice job of angling the defenseman out and getting involved physically, and that was an important quality. I want to jump in on something quickly here. On the second goal by Gustafson, Sean, Mark Scheifele makes the entire play. I don't care that he doesn't get an assist. He made 3 passes on that sequence in the offensive zone. That if those plays don't happen, there is no point shot and there is no deflection or double deflection. So for me, this is another, I understand people get all worked up about primary versus secondary assists. I mean, on the Gustafson goal, there's no goal without Scheifele. He's not even on the ice by the time the goal is scored, but it was just an incredible effort. 2 really patient plays, and I thought he was just excellent. And I thought the other thing too, Sean, just quickly, David Gustafson played his 111th NHL game today. I believe that's the most ice time he's ever had in a game. 19 shifts for 14-13, along with that 3 shot on net, 4 hit stat line. Fantastic job overall. And I agree that line started the game, set the tone, and also really did an excellent job. And I thought somebody put it in the chat that I highlighted. Mason Appleton with the cross ice dump ins and on the forecheck. That line was absolutely dynamite, making smart plays all over the ice. And hey, would they like to chip in a little bit more offense? Of course. I think 17 games without a goal for Lowry, but I don't care about that. And Adam Lowry deserves a lot of credit. Sean's NHL game number 700 tonight. That's just an incredible number for any player in the NHL. Another great example that it doesn't matter where you're picked. Adam Lowry's a third round draft pick in 2011, playing 700 games and counting, well on his way to 1,000 games at the NHL level. I thought he was excellent in the game again today, very involved physically. And really, like you said, that line kind of set the table.
Totally.
And just a quick thing on the Ehlers goal that you mentioned. I mean, that came after an icing, as you said. But, I mean, excellent. Like, the play that Sean Monahan makes on that pass, Sean, it is exquisite, right? Monahan, the puck gets kind of kicked from Toffoli to Monahan. Monahan gets a great shot away, but then pulls the puck out and then has the wherewithal to know on a pre-scan that Ehlers is open in the slot and makes just an exceptional pass. Ehlers buries it. Impressive stuff all around.
Good stuff. Okay, before we do move on here, I just want to give a shout out to Cambridge Credit Union and talk about the great teamwork we saw from the Jets tonight. Like you had said, or someone in the chat room had said, the fourth line is playing like a clone of the third line. Sure. I think on this night, the fourth line, third line, second line, first line, we're all playing together, looking like each other, just like Rick Bowness likes them to. That's a good sign of the Rick Bowness blueprint, and it takes good teamwork to do that. And we wanted to give a quick shout out to the team team at Cambrian Credit Union, from answering members' calls in less than 1 minute to having all their advisors available by video from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It makes it so easy to be a Cambrian member. It is obvious that the whole team at Cambrian cares about giving you great service. All right, another thing I wanted to bring in here is it's been called for, not quite asked and answered, but Pat Rathwell says, Renny, we need the headband. Come on, man. Well, okay. It's a late breaking version of the headband, the Kenny and Renny show. Here we go, everybody. Okay, quickly, I wanted your thoughts on Perfetti coming out, because a lot of folks a couple of games ago would have said this was a massive mistake. I mean, he's essentially the guy who snaps the Jets out of their funk in a 6-game losing streak and starts and does a pretty good job in the second game of helping build the momentum to now what we see are 5 straight wins. What do you take away from him being taken out of the lineup?
Well, I mean, I appreciate what Cole has done to get himself back into the equation, but he was a non-factor on Tuesday in the game, quite frankly. So I think he was 9 minutes and change in the game. It was, he'd barely had a shift in the third. So it was one of the few games, like we had talked a ton about it, Sean. Perfetti's pace had been up in the last little while and considerably, and I thought he kind of dipped back to the pace that he was playing at when he went through the rough spell. So anyways, I thought it was, it's tough for Perfetti, and I know that it's going to be something that down the road, it's going to help him. I was talking to Jason Robertson today about, the one healthy scratch he had early in his career. Jason was quick to talk about his brother, Nick Robertson, who's been in and out of the Leafs lineup, in and out, even though he's been producing. It's a tough thing to go through, but I think that he'll really grow from it. I don't think Cole would have fit better than Gustafson on the third line today. And Sean, your point about the fourth line looking like the third line and on and on and on.
It was a view. Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, the viewer saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is simple for me. The reason Morgan Barron wasn't on the third line instead of David Gustafson today is because of how well the fourth line's been playing.
Right.
Rick didn't want to disrupt 2 lines.
Which we talked about a little while ago, right?
Yes.
Like, it's time to give them some consistency, right? And
right.
Well done. Anyways,
so
continue on. Or you've moved on.
I think that's probably enough for that. And just a quick one before we dig into the other stuff. For those who may not have been paying attention to the Frozen Four, Rutger McGroarty and the Michigan Wolverines have been eliminated 4-0 by Boston College, the top seed. My colleague Mike McIntyre from the Free Press is down there. He's got some fun stuff happening. I mean, he got caught up with Rutger and a bunch of his family members. And a bunch of other people that are very involved in his life. He's got a big feature in Saturday's paper. He just got out of the room. He said Rutger was incredibly emotional about having his season knocked out. And, again, you're not going to find out now in a situation like this. For someone who's been invested in the program as much as Rutger, he's not going to be talking about his future. But what I would say is that we should have some clarity about whether or not he's turning pro in the coming days here. Again, there'll be a cooling off period of some sort, but I still stand by what I said. I think, Sean, you agree with me. I think we're going to see Rutger McGroarty's name on an entry-level contract at some point in the next, I don't know if it's 3 to 5 days, but I'll be surprised if he's not turning pro in the next little while. As we've said from the beginning, there's always a chance that you want to go back and chase it. This guy's been in the Frozen Four in each of his first 2 years. John Chan asked, will Rutger return to Michigan to try to win a championship? I mean, it's possible, but I don't see it. I think that this is a guy who has a pro-style game, pro-style body, and a guy who probably is going to have a hard time saying no to a signing bonus. I mean, I know that the NIL money changed the game at the college level, but I think that Rutger McGroarty is going to be joining the Winnipeg Jets organization on an entry-level contract in the next week or so, or less.
I don't know if this is truly like a Vegas Golden Knights fan who's in here to chirp, but if so, this is high level trolling. I see 3PO says, "Are the Jets going to relocate to Arizona in a few years? It's tradition." If that's the case, if there's some Vegas Golden Knights infiltration going on here, just to do the chirping,
Welcome.
this is well done. This is extremely well done. I just wanted to finish up on Perfetti. I think to me, again, Gus coming in and doing what he does on that third line and seeing how that third line was effective tonight, how the fourth line was effective tonight, I think kind of hammers home the idea of what I was talking about before that Perfetti should be a player whose like competition is not to hop onto that fourth line when there's, some jostling to be done. It's to be a top six guy. Like his role is if someone falls in the top six, he's the guy who steps into the breach in that situation. I think like if we're talking about why the Jets were so effective tonight, it's not for the kind of game that we saw from Cole Perfetti. As good as it was 5 games ago, this was playoff hockey tonight. This was big boy hockey. David Gustafson's a big boy who knows how to play that big boy hockey. So is Nino Niederreiter. Those are the guys who are going in there. Tyler Toffoli has clearly done it before. You've had him in that spot there. So to me, I think tonight what I saw just reinforces what we were talking about shows ago when we were talking about the idea that Cole Perfetti is essentially a black ace who pops into the top 6 or out. I don't think the whole experiment of having him on the fourth line is one that should be carried into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not. I'm still leaning in your direction, but I don't think you can rule him out for. I mean, again, depending on circumstance, he still is under consideration for me for fourth line work, and maybe you can bump him up in game. But again, yeah, I mean, it's unlikely that he's going to be in game 1 of the playoffs. And speaking of who's going to be in game 1 of the playoffs, Sean, I think we got to get into this here before we go to the sponsorship stuff.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. So this wax poetic. I mean, 54, I think, has established himself. I thought the thing that made the least sense to me this year was when he got pulled out of the lineup.
Agreed.
But 64 has in every opportunity since, and we talked about this all the time. I said in numerous times he'd come into the lineup and he hadn't shown to me what a guy like Schmidt had shown when he got taken out of the lineup. Schmidt was earning his way back into the lineup. Stanley, I thought, would have a good game, and then it would be like, well, why are we keeping you here? I know it started with 2 fights with Logan Stanley, and that's kind of what caught the coach's eye, but everything that he's done since, especially in a game like tonight, where you're playing big boy hockey against a team that does have the ability to grind, he looked as comfortable as I've seen him under pressure tonight, Ken, where that's been times in the past where I've seen Logan Stanley responds and doesn't respond well to pressure. I thought he handled the pressure amazingly tonight. In fact, it almost felt to me like he was a step above. Never mind him getting a good lick in on a player like Logan Stankoven. Good for him to have grasped the spot in the lineup the way he has. I am truly seeing, I said it a little while ago, I'm seeing the best hockey that I've seen at the pro level from Logan Stanley. But beyond that, Logan Stanley is making himself not only a person who's hard to take out of the lineup, but a guy who's showing an edge and a style of game that's like, wow, never mind not having an excuse to take him out of the lineup. He's showing me something that I really, really want in the lineup when the playoffs come around. So a lot of guys will get, a lot of the talk about Pionk. I think a lot of the reasons a guy like that doesn't make his way out of the lineup is because in the past, he's shown things that the Jets want in the lineup. Think of it like this. The Jets, a lot of folks out there don't give up on the Jets when they go through a 6-game losing streak because they've shown us what they're capable of. And there's a lot of belief that they'll get back to it. Tonight is an example of them getting back to it. Well, Pionk at the peak of his game brings something that the Winnipeg Jets really want to see in the lineup. And so even when he falters, they're hoping that he can come back and believing and trying to support him to get back to that. Logan Stanley is showing a style of game where it's almost now that he'll buy himself, maybe not in the playoffs like this, but going forward with the Jets next year, he'd buy himself time playing bad games because there's an expectation that you can get him back to what he's showing right now. And that is something you really, really want in your lineup.
Yeah, and I mean this debate has been flowing for years, and because the Jets traded up to get him at 25, some people thought he had to be a top 4 D-man or bust, and that's not the case. I mean, sometimes your first rounders that a team drafts, they turn into third and fourth line guys or third defense pair guys. I mean, Logan Stanley is a guy who, Sean, this is crazy. I wrote a story. I highlighted it. I wrote a piece this afternoon about Logan Stanley. I spoke with him the other day in Nashville after the morning skate, and this is crazy. When I went back and looked at the numbers, he was a healthy scratch this season for 43 of the first 53 games this year, and suddenly he's played 6 of 8, and now he's under consideration, strong consideration, I might add, for game 1 participation. And
Yes.
to me, that's an incredible turnaround for a guy who may have been on his way out the door or whatever you want to say it was going to be. He stayed ready, found his way back, and now he's providing some of the elements that have been lacking with the Jets defense core. We've talked about for years how they have a lot of the same thing amongst their grouping. And now, what do the Jets need? Well, they need some size. They need somebody who plays a physical and assertive game and a guy who's moving the puck. So that's what they have. And he's done a nice job on that front. And hey, he's going to have to keep doing it, Sean. I mean, when you're in that situation on the periphery of the lineup, your battle is constant because there's always somebody either on the roster or in the minors or in junior or playing overseas that's gunning for your job. So there's no ability to have a let up because the Jets have other options. But this is the reason why he's been kept. The Jets have reinvested and doubled down on Logan Stanley constantly since they drafted him in the first round. And he's starting to show them what he can become at this level. And again, the Jets have question marks on the back end beyond this season, not in terms of their play, but in terms of whether they're going to be here or not, with 2 pending UFAs and Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello, both different styles of players, very important players. But Brendan Dillon provides the most physical element on the back end the Jets have. And now they're getting similar physical play from Logan Stanley. We've talked about it before. Dylan Samberg is a guy, Sean. He's always been a banger at other levels. At the college level, at the world junior level, obviously at the high school level, he was bigger than almost everybody out there. But that pairing has been effective. And I think Dylan Samberg deserves a ton of credit for moving to his right side and keeping his level up. I thought he's done an excellent job. And that pairing, again, all year long, the third pairing has been solid. Nate Schmidt has also been solid in his role. But right now, Logan Stanley's bringing a little bit more of a physical element. Nate Schmidt can provide some physical nature, and he does some other things. He's obviously a little bit more offensively gifted player in terms of getting up on the rush and providing the second wave. But right now, Logan Stanley has done a nice job of, bridging the gap, and he's basically got to be almost neck and neck. I mean, we'll see on Saturday. I mean, can you see a scenario when Logan Stanley's not in the lineup on Saturday against the Colorado Avalanche? I can't.
Julie Sue said this, and I could potentially see them worrying about like going with a more of a speed game to counteract what Colorado brings. But I don't think you take a guy out of the lineup after he plays like that. I did want your take on this, and we got to do
4
it quick.
shots on goal, 6 attempts, 5 hits for Stanley today.
We got to do this quick, Ken. Vince says Logan and Samberg did have a big whoops early on, leaving 2 Dallas players behind them for a 2-on-0 breakaway. Nice recovery by Dylan, which we're probably about to get into here. I don't see it as a mistake. I see it. You just touched on it. The second wave. It's a good play by the Dallas defender, but the Winnipeg Jets have been doing this all year, and they've scored a lot off this, where they're just trying to outman guys down the ice. The instructions in order to do that are that you can't be turning over the puck like that because it becomes problematic. You saw Josh Morrissey do it a number of games back where he breaks up a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-3 2 and then fires it down the ice and catches Kyle Connor going the other way. It's the danger of playing like this. You try and mitigate that by really holding on to the puck and making sure you don't turn it over. This is one time it turned against them, but I don't think in this case it's a big whoops. I think Logan and Sandberg were doing exactly what they were asked to do by their coach. This is the blueprint. That's part of the blueprint, and there ended up being a chink in the armor of the blueprint in this case. But I don't think if you're doing what your coach is telling you to do, I don't believe it's a big whoops. Anyway, Ken, let's get to the Johnson group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. Got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I think it's the back check by Dylan Sandberg on that aforementioned 2-on-0 rush that they gave up. Both Stanley and Sandberg were hustling back, and I thought he made an exceptional play to break up the pass on the 2-on-0 rush. I mean, it was just a really good hustle. And honestly, I understand why it's called, but in the building, I don't think it was intentional that Dylan Sandberg knocked the net off. In that situation, he just dove, he got up, he didn't want to run into the net, and the net came off pretty easily. Now, was it a benefit for the Jets that the net came off? Of course, and that's why the penalty is called.
Yeah, it's a benefit. It's a lacking the benefit of the doubt at that stage. Because it's a benefit for the Jets, you don't get the benefit of the doubt that you knocked it off. Yeah,
but I personally don't think that was intentional. I think it was more of accidental. But I understand why it was called.
It was happening one way or another. Yeah,
sure, and I'm okay with it being called. I just think it. If that's Game 7, the Stanley Cup Final, is it getting called?
Yeah, no, anyways, I don't think so. Anyway, I'm going to go just quickly here right at the end of the game, leading to the empty net goal. Jamie Benn has a rebound that he's going on, and Mason Appleton not only beats him to the puck, but doesn't just chip the puck away so that there's more chaos. He chips the puck right straight with like force to the corner so that it bounces up the boards. He finds a way to take a race to the puck in a dangerous area and literally turns it into a pass up the boards to a winger that he knows is there, who turns it over, who gets it over to Scheifele, and that game is over in that situation. That was just, there's certain things that Mason Appleton, I know he doesn't get a lot of credit. I wanted to make sure we talked about him quickly because he doesn't get a lot of love, and we don't talk about him a lot on this podcast. There's a lot of things that he does extremely well, and they're the subtle parts of the game that make that third line a really good third line. That was a subtly awesome play that he pulled off there. And for me, that's my got you covered play of the game, the Kenny and Renny OGs. And I'll tell you something. Hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yes. I think I'm going to go with I think I sent you one earlier, but in the meantime, I'm going to go with I actually think the Jedi Mind save that he made on Joe Pavelski is one of them that I think ended up being really important. But I'm going to find, there we go. Jamie Benn, with Lauren Brossoit on Jamie Benn with just under 9 minutes in the second period. But I wanted to mention that chance. And I actually think that Dylan, you would have a better idea. You saw the replay at home. Do you think that Dylan Sandberg actually sort of checked the stick of Pavelski, and that's why he kind of didn't get all of it and maybe almost fanned on it on the Pavelski chance in the slot on the power play?
I'm not sure. I want to get into, we just got to get moving on this. So I'm going to go with the save on, on Tanev, the glove save on Tanev.
Yep.
I think was in that moment, it was one of the greatest opportunities that the Stars had created at that point. And it's not just the save, it's the way that Brossoit saves it. You could tell by that point he'd been locked in, and there was a real feeling to me within the Dallas Stars that in that moment when he makes that save and kind of makes it look very casual and so calm, that they're like, ugh, the window on us winning this game closed. That to me was the kind of save that broke that whatever confidence that the Dallas Stars would have had left. So that's my keg save of the game. It doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what Ken thinks. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate to the keg, any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner, that would be Graydon Kramer. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email address, and I will have the fine folks at the Keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last, and that brings us to the TCB Lamplighter. What do you got tonight, Ken?
It's the game winner for me. Ehlers, after a tough outing there where the turnovers were plentiful. Nikolai telling me after the game that he took more of a simple approach today. I thought his puck management was excellent in the game. There were not those hope plays that were a little bit too prevalent in the game against Nashville. Rick Bowness saying before the game that he and Nikolai had a discussion in the morning, and that Nikolai he didn't really like the way that he played, and he probably didn't like the way that he didn't play at all or much in the third. But I love this about his demeanor. It's a guy that cares a lot. He has the ability to self-assess, and then he went out and played a strong game and played a smart game, and he got a reward on that play thanks to a really great pass by Sean Monahan, who really battled in front of the net to get to the rebound after his initial shot. And Ehlers buries it through the 5-hole to really set the tone for this game. And I thought that was such an important response for him after a tough game where he had his least amount of ice time the entire season.
I know I usually go for the like the repeatable goals, the chaos, all that kind of stuff. So the Gus Bus goal is the kind of goal that I would usually be talking about being the lamplighter of the game. I'm going with the Ehlers goal, not just because of that line, but the sequence that I talked about before that. This is a team goal. Like if I'm Nikolai Ehlers, I'm walking over and I'm giving a pat on the head to Adam Lowry, Gus Bus, and Mason Appleton, because they're the ones. I mean, how many times this year, Ken, do you think that line has sent a line out onto the ice, taking a draw in the offensive zone, looking across at 5 guys who are gasping for air? How often has that happened, and how often has it paid off for the Winnipeg Jets? That's just to me, that's team hockey, and that's guys who, the vast majority of hockey fans would never see that. They would never see the value of what that Lowry line brought to that goal, but players no doubt do. And when you've got guys who are going out and getting no glory and yet grinding their butts off to try and set the table for you to do something, that is what creates team belief. That makes you want to go out and capitalize on that situation to help the guys who set you up pay off. This is the kind of goals that brings hockey teams together. I think this goal is a blueprint goal more than any other goal, because it's the kind of thing that, once again, it's little things done right over and over and over again that leads to the outcome that you saw from the Winnipeg Jets here tonight. Anyways, that's my lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what I think, matters what you think. Tell us what your #lamplighter of the game is, and you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift your own 8-pack, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company, where I headed down for our not even annual. It's kind of like a quarterly, or we do it like 4 times a year or something like that. But met up with John Liu from TSN. Fred, their camera guy, wasn't in town. Colin was there, and we had a good little get together there. Just a quick story I want to tell. Ken talked with the brewmaster. He was down in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was walking around with the TCB, the diamond logo on his hat, and someone in Atlanta, Georgia yelled, "Hey, Kenny and Renny, right on." And I heard a couple more stories of them telling me, basically in situations where now when people see the logo, people are getting to know TransCanada Brewing through the Kenny and Renny logo. They're almost becoming synonymous. It awesome. Made me proud in that moment that people are recognizing the good stuff that's happening at TCB, just like our winner is going to recognize the good stuff when they go and cash in on what they got. And that would be Coachy51. Coachy51, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me your email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. That is it for us, Ken. Next game, I think it's fair to say biggest game of the year for the Winnipeg Jets. They've locked things up here. I just wanted to touch on this quickly. Someone here quickly asked, ZTM says, Stars and Avs don't scare me come playoff time. Someone asked me earlier on, which is a better matchup. The Avs are a great matchup because I think the Jets are perfectly built and positioned to neutralize the Avs' strengths and capitalize on their weaknesses. If you're taking a look at this Stars game after you saw what the Stars were capable of doing to the Jets earlier on and thinking that this game defines the rivalry between the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets to the point that you're not scared of the Dallas Stars, you're not paying attention in this case here. But getting into this Colorado game, win this one, in my mind, Ken, that's it. Home ice advantage in this series starts in Winnipeg, which is important because to neutralize the strength of the Colorado Avalanche, having home ice advantage most definitely helps because you get Adam Lowry out against who you want to get him out against. And of course, that would be Nathan MacKinnon. So massive game, biggest of the year. Ken, you have anything to say before we go?
Yeah, it'll be an awesome game on Saturday. Looking forward to being there. And I know you got to do a lot of the fun stuff at home this week that I'm fired up for. But I just had a fun day yesterday. One of the great thrills of the job. Once in a while, we get to sneak over to MLB ballparks and able to complete the MLB bingo card again yesterday, heading out to see the Rangers and Oakland Athletics. It was a fantastic evening with one of my closest childhood friends, Mike Dick, and it was fantastic. It's been a great road trip here. A couple of Winkler Flyers alumni I've seen in the last two game stops here. Mark Zacharias on Monday in Nashville, and one of my closest pals, Mike Dick here. So anyways, we talk about the community building and lifelong friendships. Always important to enjoy and express our gratitude for the things that we get to see with this magnificent job that we get to do most days here.
Well said. Chat room, great job on this night. We really appreciate you contributing. 1,131 people in the chat room here, or 27,584. You take a guess. One of those numbers is right at this time. Either way, great numbers for people showing up here. Thank you for that. And I'll say this, as I always do before we head out here, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate the contributions made by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Ferlin, the Johnson Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, Transcanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We could be talking about Winnipeg Jets home dates after the very next game. It's getting exciting as it goes down to the wire here, people, especially if the Jets can replicate that performance and then that become back to their new normal. Boy, oh boy, Ken, have you cleared the calendar for springtime? They play like that.
Always.
I sure hope you did. Anyways,
Calendar's
thank you,
open.
everybody. We will chat with you after the next game. Hope to see you there. Thanks for coming. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.